Hey, everybody, welcome back to I Know a Guy. I'm Anthony, and this is the podcast where connections thrive. Each episode, we spotlight inspiring entrepreneurs, professionals, and individuals doing amazing things. Together, we'll grow your circle, spark collaborations, and discover new opportunities. Today, we're meeting Gresham Harkless Jr., the founder of Blue 16 Media, CB Nation, and Blue Star franchise, where he helps businesses leverage media, marketing, and technology to succeed. With over 1,600 podcast episode of Am I a CEO and a passion for helping entrepreneurs grow, Gresh is the leading voice in digital marketing and business storytelling. How are you doing today, Gresh?
I'm doing awesome, Anthony. Excited to be here.
I was excited to have you. I enjoyed our conversation that we had, and you're doing cool things, so more people need to know you. So let's see about doing that. To start off, where are you located?
Yeah, I'm about 15, 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. in the Northern Virginia area, or there, Northern Virginia side.
Awesome. Are you originally from the area, or are you new to it?
Pretty much. So I've been here since I was about 5 years old. Funny enough, I'm a military brat, but I didn't really move around that much. I've really been around here since I was about five. I've moved around about two times before that. And yeah, but I pretty much can call this, home, which is unusual for a place like this.
Yeah. No, I get you there. Okay, so if people haven't been there and you have friends coming into town, let's say, where are you taking them? What are you doing? And where are you guys going for dinner?
Absolutely. So I'm probably definitely taking them to Alexandria. I used to live in Alexandria. Funny enough, my wife's father is coming down soon, and we were just figuring out where to take him. And he loves seafood, so we're like, hey, we need to find something that's near the water. So we're definitely probably going to take him down. So anybody that's around, I think you would want to go down to Alexandria, Old Town Alexandria. Definitely nice waterfront, loads of people there, just a really cool vibe and experience. And if you're really, really up for it, you can actually take the we actually did this for my mom for her birthday because they live super close. We took her on a ship across to DC and back. So one of those cool experiences, not maybe in this cold weather, but if it's a little warmer, you might want to do something like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not now, but later. Yeah, no, that sounds good. Awesome, awesome. So what can you tell us about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you probably heard, and I appreciate you saying it so well, Anthony, I'm very much so a busybody. I like to be involved in a lot of different things, but I'm at the heart of it. I'm really passionate about entrepreneurship. I always feel and have said that entrepreneurship to me equals hope. And I think that's for me, going through like, some difficult times in terms of being laid off, thinking I was going to get laid off again, not sure like what exactly I wanted to do, but I've always felt I had entrepreneurial tendencies at a very young age, and I usually joke and say before I even knew how to spell that. So I think for me, I really help out people along that journey of starting, businesses, thinking about like what that's going to look like. I've done a slew of interviews of entrepreneurs, business owners, and I'm a big believer in the quote, in order to see further, you stand on the shoulders of giants. So I've had giants on the show and t telling us really awesome things that we can kind of learn from. And then, of course, the marketing ends up being a really big piece. So that's kind of like a little bit more about like what I do in different facets. But at the heart of it, I'm just trying to help people start, grow, and then, of course, be able to market those entrepreneurial ventures.
Awesome, awesome. So, you're doing a lot. Kind of, can you walk us through that journey? Kind of what started you first? You said, you had some rough times. So how did that kind of snowball into where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, to really kind of kick off like where everything started, it only became clear to me, as I got older. Like, but when I was a kid, I was that kid that sold potato chips on the playground. I got my parents to go to MJ Designs to buy beads so I can, create necklaces and things like that. But one of the unique things I touched on being a military brat. So before we had like all these awesome tools and snazzy tools where we're able to instantly connect with people across states, countries, and a whole everything in between, I started a family newspaper. And that family newspaper was because my dad got restationed while I was about 10 years old to go to an entirely different country. So I was really passionate about, creating and writing and things like that, and still am. And I started that family newspaper and would cover like all the things that were going on in our family. So the reason I bring that up is because I did do that for about 2 years or so. I also sold some of the subscriptions to family members and friends. But I think more than anything else, when I was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to quote unquote do when I grew up, it was that story that I felt like was a little bit unique enough to where like it was like maybe there's some, little seed of Gresh and who he is and what kind of lights him up. So fast forward a lot of years. I did a lot of interviews, as I mentioned, have a blog. Really tried to like learn about entrepreneurship and business because I felt like I had those seeds, and it just kind of blossomed from there. But I mean, it was not without those rocky roads. I've had really great jobs, really not so great jobs. I've been laid off once, was getting laid off again. I've been in business for about 11 years or so now. So it's been the full kit and caboodle, everything that could happen, I feel like has happened. And it's just been a wild ride overall.
Yeah, I love that. What do you love about what you're doing now?
You know, it's funny enough, I almost feel like the thing that I love the most is, well, I'll take you back. Like when I was getting ready to start my business, I didn't get a lot of support. I think people say, "Oh yeah, do it, you start your business," but when you really get close to like jumping off the cliff, not a lot of people were like, "Hey, I would do that." So to answer your question, I mean, I think the thing that I love most about it is sometimes you build a business, you do all those things, but I think you prove even more to yourself. As much as you're building the business, you're also building yourself. So I feel like even the challenges, me 10, 11 years ago, I don't think I would have thought I would be doing what I'm doing now, even though I wanted to do it. But I think it's the difference between saying like, hey, I did more than sometimes I give myself credit for. But I think being able to do that myself, of course, is awesome. But I think even more to be able to hear that excitement from other people, whether it be getting new clients or customers for marketing or frankly just starting a business and having a dream of doing that is something that kind of lights me up more than anything else.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've been doing it for a while. You're obviously getting pretty good at it. What advice would you give entrepreneurs looking to start off, or maybe people that are early in their entrepreneur journey that maybe if you could go back and tell yourself, hey, look out for this, this is probably coming your way. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down. I have this thing that I say on the podcast a lot. I say, if you run your own race, you can't lose. And I think that's so much easier said than done. And what that kind of, alludes to is basically if you lean into who you are, your superpowers, how you can kind of do things a little bit differently, it's going to change the game so much for yourself. And you don't end up competing. There's this book called Blue Ocean Strategy. And a lot of times it's kind of wrapped around this idea of like, how do you create and find that blue ocean, that opportunity that no one else is doing? And I think the more that we lean more into who we are and lean into our superpowers, that makes it so much better. So if anybody's listening to this, I mean, of course, you want to make sure that you are quote unquote standing on the shoulders of giants. You're listening to what people are doing to be successful. But I think even more than that, you want to know yourself, know who you are, know what lights you up. Like I always say, I always like go back to 10-year-old Gresh. I say, well, how would 10-year-old Gresh deal with this? And I think that if we ask ourselves that on a deeper level, sometimes we'll get that creativity, that inspiration, frankly, even that trailblazing way that we can take what might be the same business, same services as we're providing than another person, but we're doing it in our own flair and our own flavor in our own way.
Yeah, I really like that. Like you said, running your own race. People need to understand that, just because somebody is talking to you on YouTube while they rented a Lamborghini and they're talking in front of it, right? That doesn't have to be you. Whatever your level of
Right.
success is, that's what you're shooting for. You don't need to be a billionaire. You could make enough running your business that you and your family could take a entire week off and go travel. If that's success, great. Run there. So that's awesome. That's fantastic advice. What is like your average client or average person or average, pain points that somebody might be dealing with that if they're going through XYZ, Gresh is the person they're supposed to be talking to?
Yeah, I mean, I think in many different levels, usually the biggest thing is, if they're thinking of starting a business and they're not sure exactly how to navigate that or what that looks like, sometimes just having those conversations ends up being a really big thing. Like I have even like I call it, we call it an entrepreneur assessment that we kind of take people through just to kind of understand like what their appetite is, what type of business, and just kind of get, again, more information because I think, again, running your race, you got to know what your race is and who you are and what your superpower is. So really leaning into that, it ends up being a huge thing. So that's a big kind of pain point. I would say probably, if not more, probably 1A, 1B is probably visibility. Like all the time, people like have a great widget. They're really passionate about it. They spend a number of years kind of working on it or like kind of sharpening their saw and getting their expertise up, but not enough people know exactly what they do and how they do it. So a lot of what I do is to help people to kind of be found online and I have my marketing philosophy. I say everybody is a media company. Everybody's in the media business, whether you know it or not. And it's just a matter of understanding like your goals, your aspirations, who you're targeting. And then of course, like sometimes the resources that you have available, and then working backwards from there to kind of get your name, your information, and of course, most importantly, your impact out there.
What about power partners? What are good synergies with other professions or other industries that you found where you might be able to go in and collaborate in certain areas?
Yeah, I find that especially from the marketing standpoint, it's interesting enough other marketers and you'll hear from a lot of marketing people that they're 360-degree like marketing professionals. We kind of focus on web design, support, SEO services. So we really like to connect with other digital marketers, largely because they're having very similar conversations. I was in a networking group for a number of years, and that's actually how I started my business. And one of the phrases that came from that was coopetition. It's cooperation and competition. So even though they're your competitors, they end up having that opportunity where you can co-collaborate. You are speaking the same language, having the same conversations, and sometimes you can help out clients in that way. I would probably say right next to that are people that are in that B2B, that business space, having those conversations. So your business coaches, your consultants, you really those people that are understanding maybe more of a 360-degree level of the business and understand where people are. But that financial planners, people like that end up being really great partners.
And a question mostly for me, and other people out there in
Yeah.
this space. Over 1,600 episodes of I Am CEO. How? I'm starting off, so I'm just kind of interested in, what is it about, how does it go, and just some details about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what does it say? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. It's kind of like it began with one episode. And funny enough, you rewind back to the very first episode. I interviewed my mom who has an embroidery company. So, that's just kind of like how everything started. You do all the flubs and everything in between, and you start out with the ones close to you and to kind of get everything started. But I think for me, it's been such a great experience and a great passion. And that's why I love everything that you're doing, the brand, the name, everything. I know a guy or a gal, as we just talked about as well too. I think when you start to lean into that and you're doing it for the right reasons, I think it really lights a lot of things up. If it's in your superpower and it lights you up, a lot of times you can create win-win-win synergy. So I think for me, like I'm very curious. And I love talking to people. I love interviewing people. I love like really hearing not just what they do, but ultimately like why they do it, like what fuels them. And I think when you can start to be fueled by that, you get it down to like a system and a science. I was able to replace a lot of the outside networking and things that I was doing even before the pandemic. So I got it down to a system and science. I had my set questions. I had the overlap of questions so that it would be very much a flow. And I wanted to kind of make sure that every interview was a great story. You hear from a great entrepreneur and business owner, but frankly, we also get to hear a little behind the scenes on like what it's really like to like run and grow a business, which I think is so necessary. So, I don't know if that was an answer, but that's what kind of fueled me to kind of get to that many episodes.
No, that's absolutely an answer, and you're right. There's something, like you said, if it is your superpower, there's something about just talking with people doing awesome things to where you let them go for a bit, and then a lot of times after about 10 minutes, people that aren't really used to talking for that long because they typically they're regular networking where you maybe get three, four, five, and then you get interrupted and it's somebody else's turn. They start going into areas they haven't gone before. You're past that rehearse bit. And that's really fun. So love that. And yeah, no, seeing what you guys are doing, it's awesome. Well, I want to be you when I grow up. So, but so why is every business a media company, and how can entrepreneurs leverage this to grow?
Yeah, so I have a very broad definition of what I consider to be like a media company. I literally consider that to be like having like a piece of content or information that's being transferred from one person to another. And the reason I kind of define it that way is because I really wanted to mean that even if you go and one-to-one and having conversations at coffee shops or on Zoom or whatever it is, one-to-one with people, I consider that to be media. So when I say that you're a media company, is literally looking at media from social media to ways you can market your business, like SEO or Google Ads or different things that way. But it's also like the one-to-one conversations that you're having. And I'm a big believer that I believe that we are all in the media business in one form, shape, or fashion. And so when you look at it like that, I compare like being a media company to go into the grocery store to figure out what dish you want to prepare. You literally have hundreds, if not thousands of ingredients that you can put into this dish. but you want to be very strategic about what ingredients you're picking, choosing. There's pros and cons of each of them. And that's why I say a lot of times if you're trying to figure out, should I do a podcast or should I blog? Should I do face-to-face networking? Should I join this networking group? Should I put that billboard up? Whatever, however you define media, you want to make sure that it's very strategic, understanding that it's in alignment with who you are, what you're trying to do, and of course, like the resources that you have behind you. So that's why I say whether we know it or not, we're all kind of in that media business.
Yeah, I love that. I never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right, right? Uh we're all trying to get out there in some shape or form. I always make the joke on here. It's like, yeah, I've done so many episodes because entrepreneurs really want to talk about themselves, and that's all it is trying to find different ways of doing that and standing out. So absolutely, I love that. What are the key digital marketing strategies to help businesses stand out online?
Yeah, I mean, right in line with that, I mean, I think it's really just understanding like what are you willing to do because it's in your superpower. And when I say willing, again, it goes back to that resource. The resource can literally be you having sweat equity in doing the thing, but it also can be like mean like what you're going to invest in. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions around marketing is that people say that you build it and you put it up and people will come. But no, if you market it well, people might come. And I think you really have to understand like how vital that is. I think there's many quotes that say if you had $10, you would spend $2 on building and $8 on marketing it. So you really want to have that mentality and that philosophy on getting your name out there because every person that hears about your business, that knows who you are and what you do is not going to become your client or customer. And once you start to realize that, you probably are going to need two, three, four, maybe 10 times as many people you think to hear who you are and what you do to make that happen. So I think that's one of the really big things is to make sure that you are leaning into the reality of what it is that you're doing. But secondly, you're leaning into who you're ultimately serving. And I think when we're in business, we get lost in the sauce and we forget that we are ultimately serving clients. We're ultimately solving problems. So you want to ask yourself over and over again, what problem are you solving? And that problem that you're solving ends up being the foundation of your marketing because the people that you want to serve have that problem and you want to be able to tell them how you can solve that problem. So don't lose sight of that. It sounds, because it's outside the box of marketing, but it ends up being such a huge foundational thing because if you can do what you do well and then you can get it in the hearts, minds, and souls of the people that you want to serve, then you're in a really, really powerful spot.
That's absolutely right. And making that realization early definitely helps because, you're not going to serve everybody, like you said. In knowing those numbers, that's scalable, right? Because then you know what you have to put in to what your output's going to be. It's all, laws of averages. So makes it easier. So awesome. How can entrepreneurs find the right franchise opportunity to match their business goals?
Yeah, so I alluded to it a little bit. Like we kind of when we go through the process, we usually reach out to people or people reach out to us and say, hey, I'm interested in buying a business or a franchise or whatever that conversation ends up starting at. And typically what we do is we take what's called a entrepreneur assessment, Zuracle assessment. That assessment gives you the opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about your strengths, weaknesses, also gives you an idea of like cultural fit as well too, especially related to franchising. A lot of people sometimes when they hear franchising, they think of your McDonald's, they're thinking your Chick-fil-A, your Subway, but really there's over 500 we have just in our inventory, and it's over 40 different categories. So literally every business that you can think of could have a franchise, and it might have multiple franchise models. So the idea is that you get to again stand on the shoulders of giants. You get to learn from people that have been able to do that, but because there's different types of franchises, there's ones that are emerging brands. So maybe they're newer in terms of getting their franchise up and going. So it might be a really great fit for a more entrepreneurial type of person that doesn't want to have all the things planned out and want to have all the rules and things that they can do and can't do spelled out versus somebody who might be more of a corporate executive that's coming from a 9 to 5, wants to make a certain amount of money, and they want to basically walk into something they can just execute on a regular basis. And of course, there's everybody in between. But I think the point of, understanding and having those assessments is that you really get to drill down on the person and understand, again, those foundational principles that I talked about related to marketing so that they can help you find your ideal franchise. And so sometimes you'll hear people ask you like, what's the hot franchise? What's the thing that's the most exciting thing? And usually the answer to that is whatever the perfect fit and great fit it is for you. And when you do that work first, that's going to help you to align with what might be those ideal franchises. So we just help, bridge the gap with those things.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people don't even know that exists. When I think franchises, the first thing that my mind went to before I started meeting awesome folks like yourself is, McDonald's, the restaurant, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So there's way more out there than what people even imagine. So awesome. Well, is there anything that I missed or, that you really wanted to add that, just out there that's maybe top of mind right now?
Yeah, I absolutely love everything that you're doing. I think when we connected, so I want to give you your flowers, so to speak, just because I think it's such a huge thing. Like, I think one of the most underutilized ways to use podcasting is actually to build relationships and connections. And I just want to give you your flowers for that, just because I think so many times we're again trying to run everybody else's race. So Joe Rogan has a Spotify deal worth $10 million or whatever it is. So I want to do a podcast to do that. But I think by being able to kind of understand like what really lights you up, understand your superpowers, your business, what it is that you're doing, and bring those two things together, that's when you're truly innovating. So I want to thank you for having me on the show, but thank you even more for what you're doing.
No, I appreciate that. It's turning into more than I thought it would quicker, because there's a lot of awesome people out there like you that just want to meet one another. And if I can help facilitate that in any way, I'm all here for it. So I really appreciate that. But for those out there that do want to meet you, that would love to go in a little bit deeper on any of these subjects, how can they find you? Where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I have a couple different things going, but obviously the easiest way is I have a site called iamgresh.com. That's IAMGRESH.com that has links to blue16media.com and the podcast, the blog, franchising, all those awesome things. So you head over there, it'll take you to everywhere else that you need to be.
Perfect. That's easy. I'm going to copy and paste that, and then we'll just put it in the show notes. You guys just have to click it. So perfect. If anybody would like to get a hold of Gresh, do it. What are you waiting for? Go get on that, make that call, read into it. There's a lot of awesome things out there. He has 1,600 episodes. I don't know if you're over 1,600. Start listening to it. There's a lot of good things in there. So absolutely reach out. He's exactly the same in a one-to-one as he is here. So I could not recommend it more. If anybody out there would like to get a hold of me, you can find me at my website, ikag.me. You can find more episodes, subscribe to our newsletter, and connect with more awesome people like Gresh in our growing community. If you or somebody you know would like to be interviewed, you could also apply on the website. But Gresh, I really appreciate you coming on. I really enjoyed our conversations. I think there's a lot of people out there that need to meet you. So let's make that happen. Let's all go out and have an awesome day and grow our circle. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate you.